Heard about this yet, but a Kennedy cousin could be headed back to prison for murder after a Connecticut judge overturned an earlier ruling that freed him. Now, in 2002, Michael Skakel, remember, was convicted of killing Martha Moxley, a 15-year-old neighbor, back in 1975. Skakel is the nephew of Ethel and Robert Kennedy. He was released in 2013 when a judge ordered a new trial. The ruling said Skakel's lawyer hadn't represented him well. Well, now that decision has been overturned by a judge who disagreed. As for Skakel, he's always maintained his innocence, and his current lawyer sent this statement to CNN. I want to read it for you now. It says, "We haven't had time to fully digest the opinion at this juncture, but of course it's a setback. We're going to be dealing with other legal procedures that are available to avail Michael of any and all of his constitutional rights." We are joined now by Yodit Tewolde in Dallas. She's a criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor. Yodit, thank you so much for being with us. I want to talk to you about this forensic evidence. There was an awful lot of it. None of it pointed to Michael Skakel. He was initially convicted primarily on witness statements. Where do you think this has the potential to go with no forensic evidence and this? We're 40-plus years after this case, after the murder.
Well, we got to respect the jury's decision in convicting Michael Skakel during the 3-week trial that he had. The appellate court said that, look, you know what, the representation by Mickey Sherman was so inadequate that it denied Skakel of a fair trial. It went up all the way to the Supreme Court in Connecticut, and they said, no, this decision is wrong. In fact, the defense attorneys and Skakel failed to prove or demonstrate that Mickey Sherman's representation was so deficient as to deny him a fair trial. So what they did is reinstate his conviction. And what that means is that is going to reestablish Skakel's status as a convicted murderer.
So where do they go from here, though? We just got that statement from the attorney. It says that they're going to be revisiting every aspect. What aspects are there? What could avail him?
I mean, at this point, I think they've exhausted so many grounds for appeals, but there's so many other legal procedures they could look for. Right now, what the state is going to want to do is request that the trial court have Skakel remanded back to prison, and the defense attorneys, I would presume, would ask the court to let him remain out in the free because he's been out for 3 years and has presumably complied with all of the requirements that he was given on the condition of being released. So right now, it's the question of whether he's going to be remanded back to prison and for how long.
Well, there was a composite sketch that neighbors that was drafted after neighbors had given reports to police about a man that they saw in that area, and it was held up at one of the trials. And it does not look like, I mean, most people would say it does not look like Skakel. The defense was trying to pinpoint it to somebody else. Does that tactic work, trying to incriminate someone other than who is in question here in terms of the defense?
Well, absolutely. That's what you want to do as a defense attorney at the trial court level. Did it work? No, it obviously didn't. The accusation of Skakel and his team was that Mickey Sherman didn't do enough to pinpoint someone else. Some would argue that he did enough and that he did try to, one, establish an alibi for Skakel and to pinpoint another possible murderer at the time. It didn't obviously work. The jury still felt that the evidence was so overwhelming and pointed towards his guilt. And that's what they rendered, and that's something that we have to respect. Now, they raised that issue on an appeal, and that still failed. They went all the way to the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court in 2006, and they denied to even review the case. So as it stands right now, he is a convicted murderer.
So what do you think should happen at this point? Do you think he needs to go back to jail?
As a former prosecutor, I would definitely ask the court to remand him back to jail. Now, remember, he's only completed half of the sentence. He was sentenced to 20 years to life. Before he was released, he only had completed 10 years. So as a former prosecutor, I would want to defend the integrity of my case and my victim's family, and I would want him to have have him remanded and finish out that sentence. Absolutely. As a defense attorney, I would try and find some other avenue to appeal to try and get this reversed.
All right, Yodit Tewolde, we appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.